Always great catching up with my next guest, the man who's in the corner of Brandon Moreno. Of course, Moreno picking up a big win in the main event of UFC Edmonton, getting it done over Amir Albazi. It's Sayif Saud, the general of Fortis MMA. Sayif, how are you, sir?
Good to see you, man. It's been a minute.
It has, yes. It's good to talk to you, and what a win. Congratulations. Another impressive victory on the Moreno side. I know, obviously, going into the fight, you guys game planned very well, and you felt like you could defeat Albazi, but did you expect Brandon to be that dominant? It looked very one-sided in the matchup on Saturday, in my opinion.
I've seen that in the gym. I've seen that in the rounds. I've seen him do that to some really, really great athletes. So once he finds his rhythm like that, it's pretty much, game on. And we saw that in the Pantoja fight. I mean, he was piecing Pantoja up in the second round. He really started flowing. But again, like I've been saying, Pantoja is just so incredibly tough that he came back, right? So Albazi also is very tough because he didn't quit. I thought that eye damage was going to really keep going, and I thought if he wasn't going to get knocked out, he wasn't going to be able to see. But he just kept going. So we wanted to finish, but what an incredible fight! It was a masterclass by Brandon, so I was really happy.
Yeah, a great performance. And how different was this camp in the sense that, Brandon took some time off? Obviously, there was more stakes with him coming off, 2 straight losses. Were things different this time around, or how could you compare sort of the Moreno in this camp compared to other camps?
It's like some cliche coach stuff, but it's like, you got to believe in what you're doing, right? Mm-hmm. We knew what we were doing was good. Mm-hmm. We knew the level. I think Brandon showed a level that no one's seen, right? He fought so cleanly and dominated like so unbelievably and was super entertaining, had 300 significant strikes, I think, that he threw. He landed like, twice as many. But he didn't get hit a lot. He wasn't sloppy. He wasn't getting caught. Like, this is how he's been fighting for a while, since, the Figueiredo fight. And we saw that in the Figueiredo fight. He fought like that. People forget how clean of a win that was. So the Pantoja fight was unbelievable, but the Royval fight was just an anomaly, kind of. So to see him fight that way and fight clean, and none of it was really surprising to us. At all. And that's really his capability. And I think that when you have a champion level athlete, you want to maximize, his capacity and his capabilities. And, he could hit Albazi and he can hit a lot of guys without getting hit. He's got a nice long reach. And I just want to see him continue to evolve. So I was just super excited about the whole thing.
When would you like to see him back in there? It looked like he came out relatively unscathed. I know it was a 5-round fight, but as a coach, I'm sure you want him to take some time off. From your perspective, when would you like to see him get back in there if you could sort of pick and choose?
It just depends because that division is so, crazy. And, those guys have all fought each other so many times. And like I said, credit to Royval and Pantoja and those guys that are all hovering at the top. It just depends on the Asakura fight, what happens there. Brandon always wants to fight. He wanted to fight when I was telling him to take a break. So he's always going to want to fight. But I don't know, 3 months, 5 months, it just depends. It really depends on what happens because we're so close to the title. And, if Asakura wins and they want to make that fight and they say, hey, we want to do that international fight week, we ain't saying no to that, so it just really depends.
Speaking of that title fight coming up with Pantoja and Asakura, I don't know if you've had like a deep dive on that one yet. How do you think that fight goes? Because I think the one thing people forget, Asakura hasn't fought at 125 in a while. I'm curious to see how he does on the scale ahead of the fight.
Yeah, you just nailed it. Like to not only be coming back for the first time, okay, to fight Pantoja for the belt, but you're doing it 5 rounds and you haven't made 25 in a while. I don't know. I maybe he's done some practice cuts. I don't know that camp, but I do know that guy's got a hell of a right hand. He's got unbelievable boxing, really entertaining style. He's very good at measuring distance, stepping back and countering, coming in and countering. His boxing is very high level, and he's very explosive. So for me, the interesting thing is, Pantoja's like water, man. He just keeps coming. He's not going to stop. And if he can get through that in the beginning and really start getting those grappling exchanges to be long, right, and sequential over and over again, that Asakura is defending, I just don't know if he's going to have the gas in the second and the third to be able to stop Pantoja. And Pantoja also has decent stand-up. It might not look perfect, but it's effective. He's a tough guy and he'll land coming forward. So it really comes down to that weight cut and the grappling. What's going to happen? I don't think he's ever fought someone with that type of ground skill. So that's the real interesting thing. We know he's going to be dangerous early for sure. There's no doubt.
Yeah, it's a really interesting fight. And I think that kind of answers the question of who Brandon will fight next, because, if Pantoja wins, I think even if Pantoja wins, I think there's a case to have that fight again, right? Because Brandon was the former champion. That fight was before the Royval fight, right? Like there's sort of this logjam, if I'm not mistaken. You've got Kai Kara France, you've got Royval, you've got this title fight, and then Brandon winning. Like it's kind of, I don't think you can really predict what's going to happen right now.
No, that's true. And I mean, I think that, the reality is that there's some really exciting fights to make there. And I think that Kai and Brandon, it's like Japanese superstar, Mexican superstar, like these striking dynamos, especially Brandon coming off that incredible performance. And who knows, Kai goes in there and does something crazy. But, I've said this before, and Brandon feels this way. We're not rooting against Pantoja. We respect him. And I think Brandon, I thought he won that last fight. If we're judging off damage right now in 2024, I think we win that fight now, but we also can't say, oh yeah, we'll fight him again. He's already fought him multiple times. So we just got to kind of wait and see how it shakes out and just, shut our mouths and just enjoy the work, man. We really had fun this last week. We had a lot of fun in the camp. We had tons of fun fight night. And I think that's really just going to be our focus, is just keep our head down and keep on working, and we'll see what happens.
How long does Brandon typically do a camp with you? Because he doesn't live in Texas. So does he just sort of like rent an apartment or something? Like, I don't even think I've asked you about like the relationship with you and Brandon. It's been so fascinating and obviously a lot of success. But take me through sort of like what a typical camp for Brandon looks like.
Well, I mean, Brandon did 2 camps, that we didn't end up fighting for Albazi. We got scheduled for Albazi twice and ended up doing 2 camps where he came to Dallas. We trained for a month. I mean, he was doing strength and conditioning with Coach Scatia. We had him grinding with everybody. We had, really high level wrestlers working with him, and he was loving it. But then we didn't end up fighting. So he's come to Dallas multiple times and spent a lot of time here. But for this camp, I was like, man, you got to go home, because he went to Mexico City and he was really he was kind of just tired, man. He was lonely. He missed his family. He's a family man. So I said, why don't you just stay home? He's got Capetillo there, incredible boxing coach, kept him sharp with the hands. So this camp, I just kept seeing him, and I'm in Vegas so much. I'm there almost every other week, and we scheduled our rounds, and we did plan all our practices. All of us coaches coordinate. And I ran everything that way. And that's what we did for the Figgy fight with great success. So I just kind of wanted to go back to that formula and try to emulate that process. And we had great results. So I think, Brandon will do whatever, if you're like, hey, I need you to do this. He's just the sweetest, one of the best students. He's not a guy that's going to try to shirk any type of work. He's down for anything. But for me, it's like, okay, when he's away from home, he seems pretty tired and exhausted, right? When he's home, he's got that spark. He's got that love from his kids. So for us coaches, it's whatever, he's at such a high level, whatever's best for him, we're going to try to do for him. He's not some young kid that, you do this, you do that. He's already a 2-time champion. So we'll see how it goes. But I think the Vegas camp is really good. Man, he can come to Dallas whenever he wants. But I liked the way that we did this camp.
Yeah, it seemed to work well for everyone. And take me back even further. How did you two initially link up? I was always wondering that too. I don't know if that's like publicized. Like, how did you link up with him?
Yeah, it was Jason House came to me. I don't remember where we were. We were on the road somewhere at a UFC, and he said, hey, some things are going on, XYZ. And he's like, I really think that you would be awesome for this. Me and Jason House have had a really good relationship for a long time. And he only manages one of my guys, Damon, at the time. And we've always had a good friendship and just a respect for each other. Cause I know Jason loves his guys. Like I could just see it on him. Like I can tell when guys really are invested, and you respect that in the game. You respect other people that you see have a real passion. And so when he came to me, I said, hey, that's something I would, sure, why not? And the reason why is because every interaction I had with Brandon before that was incredible. I had done a breakdown on him that we had done as a pilot, and I had talked to him and chatted with him. I had seen him in the locker room when he was the champ, and the way he was being with his teammate, and how he was just like, you could tell he just didn't even have zero ego. And I'm like, what a great kid. So for me, my thing is I want to work with people who I think are good people. And everybody thinks that Brandon's a good person because he is that good of a person. I mean, it just radiates off of him. So that's how we linked up. And, we had pretty much 6 weeks to get ready for the Figgy fight. And our relationship was our very first, practice. We're getting ready for an undisputed championship. So
Yeah.
we were under a lot of stress. And then so to win that fight was amazing. And then, on and on and on, Pantoja. And we've been through kind of a lot of stuff now. And I think this fight was like a culmination of that, where he got to really shine and kind of show everything we've been working on. And he was excited about that as well. So just an ever growing process and constantly evolving, but it was pretty organic the way it happened.
I want to talk about some other things going on at Fortis. Geoff Neal getting that win a few weeks ago. I know there was an injury and all that, but I thought Geoff leading into that looked great. And it was sort of the Geoff that we've seen in the past, the aggressive Geoff that's getting in your face. And, just how big was that for not only Geoff, but the team as well, to see him get in the win column like that?
Man, I just think Geoff's one of the best fighters in the world, and I'm not the only one. And it's just one of those things where, seeing him, how he came out in that fight right out the gate. You see him moving RDA back. When you see a Geoff Neal sliding across the octagon at you, he did the same thing to Vicente. I mean, when he's on point, he is just so dangerous. And that fight with Bilal, he was in that zone. The fight with Mike Perry. I mean, when he is on, he's unbelievable. And again, we got to remember his loss to Shavkat. That was a unreal fight. That fight was unbelievable, and he wasn't healthy. He shouldn't have been in that fight. And then the Ian Garry fight was just kind of a boring fight, and that's on us. I mean, Ian Garry played the game. He played it well. I still thought it was boring. I thought Geoff did some things. There was no real winner in that fight to me. I honestly was just kind of like, that was a bad fight for everybody, because there wasn't a lot of action. It was just kind of on both their parts. Geoff was grabbing him and trying to hit him hard, and Ian Garry would hit him and run. So those two losses, it's not like you're like, oh, wow, Geoff Neal. So I think that fight reminded everybody, like, whoa. And when you look at the division, you have Shavkat, who's the boogeyman, and you've got Bilal. Well, who's had the best fight with both of those guys?
Yeah.
Geoff,
yeah.
So it makes him super relevant, and it kind of puts him, he kind of leapfrogs all those other guys. And oddly enough, that's why I took the Shavkat fight, because I remember thinking, if there's anybody that can hit a home run on this and do it, it's Geoff. And maybe we shouldn't have. I can take some blame on that. Maybe we shouldn't have taken that fight because he wasn't 100%. But I was like, man, if he could just take this guy's hype, right? And he had him on ice skates in the third round. He almost put him out. But credit to Shavkat, he's a monster. But my thought process was, Shavkat's going to go to the title, so here's the guy that we should try to take out. And that's kind of still what ended up happening. And because their fight was so awesome, people are interested in that fight. Shavkat fans even support Geoff now. God bless them. They even respect him. They put their little flag on all of his comments.
Yeah.
And I think that's cool. So Geoff's a guy that if he wins a few fights, and you heard, hey, he's going to fight, he's going to get a number one contender fight, would you be excited about that?
Oh yeah,
you would.
Of course.
Just because of style. The style is, he's trying to take your head off, whether it's with his shin or whether it's his fist. And he's been working on a lot of other stuff too that we didn't really get to show, but excited for him for sure.
You mentioned Ian Garry, because obviously we're talking about Geoff. He's fighting Joaquin Buckley. I was just curious your thoughts on that fight. It's a main event. It's 5 rounds. Maybe headlining the Tampa card. Who do you give the edge to there? Because I think Garry probably will be the favorite going in.
I mean, let me give Garry his flowers. He plays the game well, right? He does what he does well. But it's a game, right? He plays the game when he fights. He's one of those guys that's tactical. And he said, I don't want to stand in front of Geoff. I don't want to get hit. And you can't say anything about that. Like, everyone's like, oh, you got to be a fighter. No, not getting hit is intelligent. But there comes a point where, in the MVP fight, I didn't think he looked good at all. I thought he got outstruck. And I thought the grappling wasn't really great. And I honestly thought he was better grappling than that. because the guy wins. You don't get to where he is on accident. You got to give these guys their respect. But I was kind of surprised, and it looked like he got tired, and I haven't seen that. But the thing about Buckley is his cardio is his weapon. And we saw that in the last fight. He wasn't doing too great against Wonder Boy, but what? He just turns it up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when he needs to go, he's going to go. And I think in that fight with 5 rounds, he's going to use that wrestling. He's going to use that grind, and he's going to be in his face the whole time. And Buckley also has extremely long arms, right? He's got very long arms, and he can strike. Gary's going to be throwing the teeps and throwing the body kicks, and he's going to have the movement. But it's kind of similar to the Wonder Boy fight. But with it being 5 rounds, I think Buckley has a slight edge, honestly.
Okay.
I really do, because I think he can really just be a dog. That's like a split decision type of fight.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, Ian Garry does have the ability to snipe. We can't forget the Danny Rodriguez fight. So that could happen too, because Buckley's defense isn't, we saw Kevin Holland do it. It's not, he's got some holes there, but his gas tank, his motor, his strength, his tenacity too. Like, he just showed that he can do that against Wonder Boy, who's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to give a small edge to Buckley, actually.
Okay.
Just because of the situation, a 5-round fight. And I think if Ian Garry doesn't, can't really, because Wonder Boy was touching him too, right? And he just kept following him, right? He just stayed on him. And once you start adding the wrestling in that and defending the shots, and but we'll see, man. I don't put anything past Ian Garry, so that's an interesting one. I look forward to.
They booked Macy's next fight. She's rematching Ketlen Vieira. How big is that for the team too? Because I know Macy's gone through a lot, and we're sort of seeing her being healthy and performing so well. I know the last fight, there's a whole thing with the cut, but I mean, considering how good Macy's looked, and I know Kayla Harrison looked great in her last fight, but Macy's right up there. Just how good is that for the team too?
Man, I just went on a rant about this 20 minutes ago.
Okay, no worries. Yeah,
she's incredible, man. She's gotten so good everywhere. And I always say she's not just a good fighter, girl fighter. She's an amazing fighter. Her fight IQ, her skills, her balance, her ability to change things up. Man, it's just a real joy. And we raised that girl up. She was 2-0 when we sent her to the Ultimate Fighter, and now to see her here, just kind of on the doorstep of a title shot, really is something that I'm really, really want to see come to fruition. And I do believe it will happen. And I do believe Mick Maynard and Dana White, they love Macy because she's violent. That she's violent. She brings violence, man. She wants to break your face. She wants to knock you out. She's looking to finish, and people want to see that. So I'm really hopeful that she'll get her opportunity.
Anything else at Fortis? Obviously, you guys have fights every weekend. You mentioned being in Vegas and all that. Anything else we should be keeping an eye on with some of your guys or girls, or any fights you have coming up that we should be on our radar?
Yeah, I mean, we've got Ramirez coming up. We got Damon Jackson coming up. The UFC guys get all the love, but we've got some prospects, some young guys that are just really incredible that I watch them fight, and I'm like, man, they can compete with the UFC guys right now, and they're still, maybe amateurs or just turned pro. The evolution is amazing. But who I want to talk about, Elijah Johns.
Oh,
Miles'
brother.
little brother.
Yep.
Yeah, he's defending his belt in LFA, and I think he's got the real ability to. I mean, he is so dynamic and incredible. And I mean, again, once he really kind of unlocks that as he's maturing, if he can retain that title of his, and his style is very exciting. So just got done watching him spar, and it's the young guys that no one has seen yet. Jacoby Smith is just a beast, right? And we saw him on The Contender. We've just got a lot of young talent that it's exciting, because when you see these guys going with the guys that are ranked and they're giving them a hard time, well, I mean, you don't have to, be able to do math to figure that out. I mean, when you see guys growing up in that room fighting these guys that are, top 10 guys, and going right at them, it also changes the way they come up because they're not scared of anybody. If I'm fighting Brandon Moreno in practice, I've got 25ers, Ian, a couple other guys, they're fighting Brandon Moreno all the time. You think they're going to be scared? And these guys are only, 2-0, 3-0,
yeah,
but they're training with the very best guys. So they're really scary. And by the time they get to be Brandon's age, 29, 30, I mean, look out, man. So The future of MMA is bright, and I think that we're going to continuously see an evolution, especially in the striking.
I don't think I've asked you this before. Damon Jackson is a big Dallas Stars fan. I know he goes to like the games and stuff. Do you ever go see the Stars? Because they look like a good ticket over there. I always see the crowd getting up, and obviously from Canada, I'm a huge hockey fan.
It's funny that you bring that up because me and him went to a Stars game. We took our daughters and our families, and that is the most fun I've ever had at a sporting event.
Okay.
I think the game went to OT. Yeah. The puck, I've got it in my office.
Oh, no way.
Flipped up in the glass, landed right in my lap, right?
Yeah.
Still beating. The light was still beating underneath it. I mean, we sat on the glass. We got hooked up. One of our boys at the gym is that guy. Awesome seats right on the glass. And our girls were sitting there banging the glass. I mean, the Stars game is probably it's a lot funner than going to anything else, a Mavs game or even the Cowboys game, especially now. So Stars is always exciting, you know, and I know they're pretty solid. I don't watch hockey, obviously. We're football people down here. You know how that works.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But I know they're pretty good. But I mean, I will go to a Stars game anytime. I'll go to a Stars game no matter what. Preseason. Such an awesome experience. So if you ever come down here, we'll hook you up.
Oh yeah, no, that's an arena I want to go to for sure because the fans look into it. Have you been to a game in Vegas yet? Have you seen the Knights play?
I haven't. You know, Fitzy, when we do the show, he's
a big hockey guy. Yeah,
he's schooling me on the hockey, bro. He tells me he's teaching me all the ways, but he said it's pretty tight. He said it's pretty awesome. And
it's
Brandon
so good. I'm telling you this as a Canadian, they have probably the best atmosphere in the league. It's so good.
Yeah.
Like they do a really good production and the fans are into it. And I go every year. So every year, like, cause you know, normally I'm in Vegas to work. I always, whenever my Vancouver Canucks play, I always go to Vegas to watch them play. So
I mean, coming from a Canadian, that's a pretty big damn.
I was going to say, it's the highest honor you can get if you're talking about hockey. So
we know how you guys are about hockey.
Yeah, absolutely. Sayif, thanks for doing this. We went way over time. Really appreciate it as always. Anything you want to mention before we get out of here? I'll give you the last word.
No, man, it was a pleasure and good to see you still going. I remember when you first got started and just good to catch up with you, man.